This segment is going to be terrific because we're once again joining our guest on a Zoom call. And the best part is he does this regularly. He's all about the podcast, the Zoom. He's connected, and I'm in one part of his house. I don't know exactly where in the Erickson household I'm looking at right now, but Jeff will tell us because he starts us off on our weekly segment. Jeff, great to have you back. Good to have you on the Zoom call for the second week in a row. Where are you right now?
Thanks, Steve. I'm in my palatial home office slash bedroom slash gym right now. It's a multi-purpose room, but I do a lot of my broadcasting from here. I do my work from here. I got the old 2-step commute.
So it's a bedroom, but now it's an office, and you also have a gym in there as well. So we have a treadmill, elliptical
just
machine,
a treadmill,
weights,
and a step machine that serves as a coat hanger, pretty much.
Very nice.
But yeah.
How much have you used it over the last 7-8 months?
Treadmill a lot. The step machine, not so much. But I've been biking a lot too, so that's the thing that's keeping me going a little bit there.
So are you in better shape now than you were in back in March when this whole thing started?
Marginally, yeah. I kind of rode the roller coaster there. I got my COVID-9, maybe not 19. Had too much beer on Zoom calls and just not enough activity. But then I started exercising more. After a family road trip in June, I really kind of started watching what I ate a little bit better too.
Good for you. Now you've got a lot of stuff hanging on the walls. I see probably looks like a diploma and some awards. Do we have any fantasy trophies that are displayed in the Erickson office right now?
Let's see. Trophies I got on that opposite direction. There's a plaque on the wall for my industry award I got. It's a law degree. There's an Eagle Scout award. A lot of soccer stuff. I coach my daughter's soccer teams, and I've been doing that for 10 years. I'm a huge proponent of AYSO. Great organization. I've been, we've had nothing but good times with them. So a lot of teams and coach awards and things like that, all-star teams, things like that.
Very nice. How far have you taken that soccer team? How deep?
Well, we did. There's a thing called Western States, and we were able to make it one year in our region. And this all-star team my daughter was on, and that's actually a pretty big deal. Our region usually doesn't go that far, and yeah, it's cool. It's like the final 4 teams of California, all of California, Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, that whole area there of that. Now they have different levels for extra, and then there's a club level that's, we're not at, but still it was really cool. And this is coming from a guy that scored no goals as a kid with 2 years of youth soccer. I just kind of bought into the whole AYSO experience because that's what my girls wanted to do. And I've coached for like 12 years now, and I love it.
I was so bad in soccer. That was the one sport I had a hard time. I scored 1 goal my entire life. It was my last game. And then I decided to quit and I wanted to walk out on top. And I was probably about 7, 8 years old and decided, all right, that's enough for me. I'm going to try to keep playing some T-ball and some basketball, which later became baseball, of course.
Yeah, we actually have an adult league. So if you volunteer in our region, you get to play with other coaches and refs and administrators. We have like a league of like 6 full adult teams, 11v11 full field ref and everything. Free subs. So, it's, because we're old and we need it, especially on turf, but it's a blast. And I've actually scored there a few times. So it's great. And then the beer in the parking lot afterwards, great too.
So your game has evolved over the years is what you're telling me.
You've gotten older, I'm just hitting my stride. I'm not quite at my peak just yet. I'm almost there.
I love it. You're a late bloomer. That's the best way to put it. Fantasy-wise, how are we doing right now in all your fantasy leagues since it's playoff time? Are you alive in most of them, or has your season come to an end?
I'm alive in many of them. I think it was 9 of 13 that made the playoffs. One that got knocked out last week and it got thumped. That's good. No drama there. It's just move on. Others did pretty well. A couple of buys in there, so I didn't have to play last week. This is a big week here. This is semifinals for everyone.
Yep, it is. And I'm already getting my first tweet on the show for you in terms of player matchup. So let's jump right to it. If you would like to follow up what EW Diggs just sent us, you can tweet the show, 600 ESPN El Paso, or chat with us on our free mobile app powered by United Bank. EW wants to know, Tom Brady or Phillip Rivers this week?
I'm going Brady against the Falcons. Falcons have played better as of late defensively, and yet I still like Brady. I think they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit here. Indoors, regular time slot, all these things. I think I like Brady a little bit more than Rivers. I think the Colts are going to run a ton against the Texans, and I think that means that Rivers might benefit from some play action, But for the most part, I think they're going to run it down Houston's throat.
Rivers has had a weird season, hasn't he? Because he's been better in reality than he has in fantasy, because the numbers aren't vintage Rivers numbers, but they're winning games. They're a dangerous team entering the postseason. And suddenly the Colts are wondering, is this just a one-year thing, or should we try to reach out and keep Phillip Rivers happy for the next few seasons because they're seeing what a veteran quarterback can do under center?
I would say wait until he actually plays in a playoff game against a tough defense before you make that decision. We've all seen, I think Phillip Rivers is the classic good in a bad matchup sort of guy. I mean, good against a bad team, a bad defense, good matchup guy. I wouldn't really want him, in a key moment. We've seen so many instances there where he hasn't risen to the moment. 20 touchdowns in 12 games too. 13 games, excuse me. That's not paying the bills fantasy wise. So.
No, it hasn't. Meanwhile, we were treated Monday night to an unbelievable football game and probably fantasy gold, especially if you had Lamar Jackson, if you had Baker Mayfield, Kareem Hunt. You can go on because this game was back and forth. Jackson did not dominate in the air, but he did it on the ground. And then he had that remarkable comeback where he comes back in. We heard the rumors. He says no, but regardless of how you want to put it, this was the kind of game, Jeff, that fantasy football players loved, as well as just fans in general.
Oh, it's totally entertaining. It was an amazing game. And who would have thought it coming in that Baltimore and Cleveland would provide this level of entertainment? But here we are. That funny thing is I had one playoff game where, okay, I've got like a 3.5 point lead. I thought it might've been, deficit. I thought it might've been 4.5. I've got Justin Tucker and I've got Hollywood Brown. And I'm sweating this game. Hollywood Brown's dropping passes. Tucker gets an extra point blocked. That's never supposed to happen. But then they get that touchdown late with Brown, and I could just relax finally. But it came down to that. It came down to the fourth quarter. I had skin in the game, but I was really sweating it there.
When McSorley got hurt and was laying on the ground, before we saw the graphic of seeing Jackson running back into the field, you're probably thinking to yourself, who are they possibly going to call on to try to quarterback this team through the final few minutes of the game?
Yeah, because they were down a point at that point in time. This was, this is before the touchdown, before Cleveland drove back and got their touchdown, and it was at midfield too. The thing that really benefited the most was that it was the 2-minute warning. They had time. They had like 5 minutes to go get him out of that locker room. And when they report that whole fourth quarter is he was out with cramps. We didn't know what cramps was. People were speculating he was pulling a Paul Pierce as it was used in the vernacular there. But then you saw this footage of him coming out of the locker room. At first it looked like he was limping. Later on it was reported it was a cramp in his arm. So, okay, now he had to get an IV. But that's what happened. Remember when he went out, it was 34-20. They had a 2 touchdown lead and that thing just evaporated in no time there. But yeah, it was a huge play. 4th down, they needed it too. And it was like, it wasn't just a play you could run a wildcat at. It was like 4th and 6.
Yep. And he hits a touchdown pass to Brown, which was so amazing because it wasn't just a completion. That was a 4th down touchdown pass from, like you said, midfield, which is pretty wild when you think about it.
Yeah, it was. And then, of course, on the subsequent drive, Justin Tucker, did anyone think he was going to miss that? No. Justin Tucker's just the man. He's so awesome.
Imagine if you bet the game and you took Baltimore and you ultimately were able to watch the very last play equal a safety, and suddenly you go from a push at 3 to covering the spread. Unbelievable.
Right, yeah. Especially because that's the way it was moving. The line was moving over the course of the week more and more towards Baltimore. Unless you got it in early, you probably were at that 3. And 3 is a magic number. Really hard to get it onto it or off that number. So a lot of the public was on that way. I'm thinking Vegas probably was hurting with that play. So good.
I think so too. All right. More with Jeff Erickson from Rotowire.com. But first, let's send it over right now to Adrian Broadus, standing by with our bottom of the hour Sports Center update. Adrian, thank you very much. We're back right now with Jeff Erickson, Rotowire.com, here on our Zoom chat this week as Sports Talk continues. Now, Jeff, I know that there are some of our listeners probably out of their fantasy football league since we're in playoff time, but you've got some good news for them, don't you?
Well, and maybe not for this year, but something you think about for next year. It stinks. After week 13, you're done. You got the entire month of December where there's all this football on and they play extra days. Ooh, Saturday games. This is great. Except you have no skin in the game. Well, what we do in Rotowire, we call it the Rotowire Stake League, in fact, because we have this side bet that's bigger than winning the league itself. About 7 of us to get together. We have a total point side bet that runs all the way through week 17. And when we go out to this dinner, this nice Taylor Steakhouse in West LA, And what we do is the loser, the top 3 teams will eat for free. Hors d'oeuvres, drinks, steak, dessert, you name it. Order as much as you want.
Wow.
4th place pays for himself. 5th and 6th pay for themselves and 1 other. Last place pays for himself and 2 other. So it gets a little punitive there. And, the entry fee for the league itself is pretty modest. So we care more about the stake bet than we do about the actual league sometimes. And of course, it's a great way to get together too. Because a lot of times our drafts are done online. We're not together in person. This is a way to go see each other. Go have a nice dinner too. Even when you lose. Okay, you're going out for a nice dinner, you're paying a little bit more.
What's the most you've ever run up as far as a bill for somebody having to cover themselves and 2 others?
I think the highest anyone has paid when they were the double buyer is like $450, $500. So, we're not going to the highest end of steakhouses. We could have gone worse, but you'll feel it a little bit there.
That makes sense. Now, if you're still alive right now, you're obviously wanting to know this week, especially who you like and who's trending. We talked about Jackson a moment ago. I guess if you're a Lamar Jackson owner, even though it's been like a roller coaster ride in his fantasy value, this would be the week, wouldn't it? Knowing you got Jacksonville on the schedule.
Oh yeah. And you're going to run against Jacksonville all day long. So I like J.K. Dobbins too. I even like Gus Edwards in a pinch. You're not quite sure, like say you're a Ronald Jones guy and he's not going to play this week. Don't go get Fournette. Go just use like Gus Edwards instead. Use Jeff Wilson on the Niners. I like him a lot. Raheem Mostert didn't practice today. He's got an ankle issue. And they're facing Dallas, which I know in your listening area, people know you can run against Dallas.
You can run against Dallas. And on the flip side, unfortunately, because Dallas is offensively challenged, instead of Ezekiel Elliott being a top 3 pick this week against San Francisco, you've got him ranked as 16 on your value meter right now.
And that might even be high. And the thing is, I actually have Zeke, miracle on miracle. A couple of my Zeke teams are actually still alive. But like DeAndre Swift, I could see putting over him. I could see Josh Jacobs putting over him. It's not that much of a stretch.
Speaking of, the running back situation and where it at least is shaping up right now, you've got Aaron Jones 8th against Carolina. It's so difficult to gauge Jones because of the kind of season that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers has had. And he's right on the verge of 40 touchdown passes. He's looking like the MVP of the league right now, Jeff. And because he's throwing the ball so much and with so much accuracy, they're just not relying on the running game like they have in years past.
Right. And we knew that Jones was a little touchdown lucky last year. The high volume of opportunities you get at the goal line just isn't going to likely repeat itself. He's been very good around the goal line. When they give him those chances, he still converts. It's just they're throwing a lot. And last week you saw Rodgers get a rushing touchdown, which if you have Jones on your roster, you're like, banging your head against the desk. But that's kind of the gamut of luck sometimes in fantasy football.
Now, as far as your value meter this week, I'm looking at guys that could be good plays and really people you like. Miles Sanders so well last week with Jalen Hurts, and you kind of still banking on that as they go up and play Arizona this weekend.
Yeah, rushing quarterbacks always help the running back, except for maybe at the goal line itself. This is kind of a maxim. It opens up those lanes. That's why the Baltimore running backs, no matter who it is, averages 5 yards a carry plus. Granted, Gus Edwards is talented. J.K. Dobbins is talented. Mark Ingram was talented, when fully healthy and back and at full speed. And it helps though too when you have to play the end can't just crash down on the running back every time. They have to stay home and watch for the running back to pull it out and run. Otherwise, you get burned like Myles Garrett did on that 150-yard run by Jackson on Monday night.
Everybody thought that with Deebo Samuel's injury, it could really hurt San Francisco and the passing game, but all it did was open up an opportunity for somebody else to cash in a big way, right?
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk got 16 targets. He's had 5 good games in a row when he's played. The problem is he's been hurt. He had COVID. They had a later bye week, so it's kind of been obscured about how good he's been of late. But he's another great wide receiver in this rookie wide receiver class, and now he's getting these opportunities. Should have a lot of opportunities this week too. I think Kendrick Bourne will also step up a little bit as well in terms of targets.
Is there anybody else that you really like this week as far as receivers? Not necessarily your top 5 or 10 plays, but guys you think that could have some great matchups and really thrive this week?
Yeah, a couple ones. I mean, last week we saw a lot of detail was paid attention to Deontay Johnson and his drops. Well, he gets to face the Bengals this week, and they have a hard time keeping cornerbacks on the field. They invested big in the offseason, and a couple of their players have been hurt almost all that time in their investments. So they're really hurting right now. I think Johnson has a good bounce back week. Pittsburgh always owns my Bengals too. It's tough. I don't know why I'm still a Bengals fan, but here we are. Nelson Aguilar, Tim Patrick are both interesting guys. Aguilar plays tomorrow night. Something to watch for there. That Vegas Chargers game, I think, will be a pretty high offensive scoring game.
I'm with you on that one. Now, you mentioned being a Bengals fan. It could be worse. It could be a Jets fan. They're still winless right now. I don't think that changes anytime soon, although it came close against the Raiders. And unfortunately, it just means Jets players, if you have them on a roster, they're probably more roster filler than somebody that's going to end up winning you a title.
Yeah, 17-point dogs this week at the Rams. You don't want to use any of the offensive players this week against them anyhow. They get the Browns next week, and then week 17. So say if the Pats get knocked out of the playoffs, does Bill Belichick try to anti-tank, try to make sure that the Jets don't get Trevor because he doesn't want to face them in his own division? Who would you trust more, Adam Gase or Bill Belichick to get it right? Bill Belichick could find a way to make it look good and still lose. I think one of the reasons why Greg Williams got canned is too obvious. You're like, oh, you gave up the game. We had to let you go now. But I don't know. It's pretty wild. Like I'm sure Belichick, of course he's not going to coach to lose, but it's just, if any coach were able to do that, it'd be him to be able to pull it off.
Let's talk about what you've got going on right now at rotowire.com. You can get a free 10-day trial as well by going rotowire.com/free. But you also have some very great stories. As always, we always like to profile some of the big ones each week. What would you like to talk about for our listeners this week?
Well, I just finished recording a podcast with our man, Jerry Donabedian, who's just a rising star in our business. He does 3 articles a week. Well, 4 really. He does 2 hidden stat articles, one for ball carriers, one for pass catchers. He also does an article called Exploiting the Matchups. He also does streaming defenses. He's fantastic. I recommend you guys check him out. Rotowire.com/free gets your free 10-day trial. While you're there, you can see my rankings, Chris List's East Coast offense. If you have a question, use Ask an Expert. We get back to you within 24 hours.
You ready for buzzer beaters? Because 2 tweets have come in as I'm wrapping up the segment, which is the way it always works with us, Jeff. It never stops. All right.
Right.
Johnny Condren wants to know, fantasy-wise, would you go McKissick or Lamb in a flex regular PPR league?
McKissick, especially Antonio Gibson was at practice, but actually didn't practice. I think McKissick gets a ton of targets this week.
Brian Clevenger wants to know, fantasy playoffs, PPR format, Mahomes or Rodgers?
Oh, man. How do you have both? That's crazy. Mahomes.
Was it tough for you to, or just, as great as Rodgers is playing, you can't go against Mahomes?
I agree. And you want to pass against the Saints. You don't run against the Saints. Not last week, notwithstanding. 1 and 4, respectively, in my rankings. That's a first world problem.
This was terrific. We enjoyed it. And for our listeners who might have missed some of it, not only can you catch it on the podcast, Jeff, but they'll get a chance to watch this conversation when we put this Zoom call up on our YouTube channel here later on today.
Yeah, we'll be titling it Faces Made for Radio, right?
It's perfect. That's why we're doing what we're doing, right? It's exactly right. Great to see you. Have you back. Looking forward to it next week. And until then, we'll talk to you.
All right. Take care, Steve.
You too. That